In January alone, 41,000 homebuyers canceled their real estate purchases. That is 1 in 7 contracts that were canceled. So what gives? You might think that this could be a sign of a potential crash coming. A lot of people are probably going to come at me and say, oh, here we go. The market's crashing. I like to look at this from a different angle. I think these people made the right decision and they dodged a massive financial bullet and they avoided having massive homebuyer regrets. Hear me out. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about a recent study that was done by Redfin that reported on these 41,000 cancellations. And we're going to break down the reasons why they canceled. And I'm going to share with you my opinion as always. I'm also going to share with you some tips on how to avoid having homebuyer regret. So let's get into this right now. So according to Redfin, 14.3% of pending home sales were canceled in January. Now, this isn't for the entire country. This is isolated to certain markets. Those markets included Atlanta, Orlando, Jacksonville, Houston, and Las Vegas. Okay, it was those markets that this study was confined to. 41,000 buyers walked away from their deals. So what happened? Well, a Redfin agent was quoted in this article saying that they were seeing more cancellations than usual and, had left people scratching their heads. But they ended up figuring out what's the problem here. Well, there was a few reasons. Number one, there's rising inventory in these markets, okay? So there's more homes to choose from. Number two, a lot of people were concerned about the uncertainty in the world and in our country right now. The economy is still trying to work its way back to what it once was, and there's a lot of layoffs going on, so people are concerned. So they're taking a back seat for now. Another reason is the mortgage rates and the high home prices. The mortgage rates have not come down, and I don't think they're going to be coming down by much the rest of this year. And it was also the general cost of home ownership. A lot of people walked away from their deals because of what they found in the home inspections. Now, look, the past 5 years, we had FOMO, right? People were just wanted to get a house. They're taking advantage of the low interest rates. There was low inventory and people were just fighting to get a home. And to the point where they were waiving home inspections, waiving appraisals. Yet that's not happening so much anymore, at least, well, not in those markets. I'm going to go into that a little bit more. But let's talk about now these reasons, okay? So now we have rising inventory in these markets. In markets such as Florida, like we have in Orlando and Jacksonville, we are seeing that shift to a more balanced market, right? Average days on market in Florida, as of right now, from what I've been told from realtors in the state of Florida, that for single-family homes, days on market are averaging about 5 months, all right? It's taking about 5 months for a home to sell. So that's about a balanced market right now. It could potentially be shifting over to a buyer's market. What does that mean? There's more homes to choose from. So people walked in, they put offers on these homes, and they're seeing the rising inventory, and they're saying, you know what? Yeah, I don't love this house, or the home inspection came back and there was some problems that they identified and they don't want to deal with it, or the seller didn't want to address it. So they decided, you know what, let's move on to the next one, or wait for the next house to come on the market because they know the inventory is increasing. The other concern was the economic uncertainty. So let's talk about that and talk about the general cost of owning a home these days. Now, look, the prices are still high. I got to say, I'm relieved to see that these prices are coming down in these markets. I wish I could say that for the Northeast. I'm reporting here from Northern New Jersey. The New Jersey market is still bonkers. It's insane. We're still seeing the same activity we've seen the past 5 years. People are still waiving inspections, waiving appraisals, and they're paying way, way over asking price. Yeah. And that goes from markets up in Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, even in Pennsylvania, we're seeing multiple offer situations, people paying over asking price. But in these southern markets in particular, that is not the case. But people are taking a step back. We've got word that there's all of these layoffs of federal employees. So there's a fear. There's a fear people are going to be losing their jobs. And look, I understand that fear. I've been there, done it. Been there, done it a couple of times. It's a very scary place to be. So people are taking more of a back seat. And I say good on them. Good on them. And I know you're all thinking like, oh, great, she's hoping for a crash. I'm not hoping for a crash. I'm happy to see that these people are not getting themselves into a dire financial situation where they're going to be house poor. And then God forbid they lose your job, they're going to end up in foreclosure. We don't want a repeat of what happened back in 2007, 2008. So I think the economic uncertainty, yeah, that is a concern, but I'm glad that people are taking a step back and not wanting to just jump at the house because, they feel like they have to buy a house. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be buying a house right now. If you need a house, make sure you have all your financial ducks in a row. I talk about this all the time. If you are in a situation where you're financially ready, then yeah, have at it. But if you're doing this just because like, oh, I just want to buy a house, I'm tired of renting, I want to buy a house, and you get yourself into a situation where in a few years you're going to be in financial trouble, my God, it's not worth it. So if you're feeling that, like these people did, these 41,000 people, they're feeling it and they don't want to deal with that. They don't want to have that stress and worry about being house poor or, God forbid, going into foreclosure. So that's a good thing. Now, the other concern was the mortgage interest rates. Okay, the mortgage interest rates in January, they were around 7%, even slightly above 7% at one point. Now they're hovering like in the high sixes. Guys, it's not going to change for the rest of the year. Analysts keep saying that these mortgage rates, they're going to be sticking around this in the 6% range, probably for the remainder of this year. If that's going to be an issue for you, do not be buying a house right now. Don't. Or if you are going to be buying, you have to get a house, you have to shop out the rates, okay? Shop out the rates, see what is the best rate you can get. If you have to buy discount points to bring it down, bring the monthly payment down a little bit, then so be it. Do what you got to do, but do the math, crunch the numbers, and just make sure that you can comfortably afford that, because these rates, they're not going to come down. And it's very telling now that these people are holding off because they don't want to deal with the high monthly payments. I understand that. So again, these mortgage rates, I think they're just going to be here. Count on those rates being high, I would say, for the remainder of this year, unless something major happens. I got to put my disclaimer in. That's probably what's going to happen. It's going to be in the 6% range for the remainder of this year. Hey, I wanted to remind you, if you are looking to either sell your home or you want to buy a home and you need to be connected to an agent in your market, please click that link down below and fill out the forms, and I will get back to you and get you connected to an agent in your area. Now, when you factor in the cost of home ownership in general, now that's a big concern. And now, I talk about this a lot. I want to talk about the home inspections a little bit here because this comes up a lot. Now, we're still seeing here in northern New Jersey and in Northeast. I have friends in New England that are still seeing people waiving home inspections, waiving appraisals. It's still a thing. But I will tell you, it's not the smartest thing to do, because if you look back in the past 5 years and you've seen my videos where I've talked about home buyer regrets, those people who waived home inspections, oh my God, they walked into almost like near disasters where they had to spend thousands to tens of thousands of dollars making repairs because they didn't do a home inspection. If these 41,000 buyers were walking away because of something they saw in the home inspection and the seller wasn't going to address it, well, good on them. Good on them. I am so happy to see that happening. Again, this is what happened in a normal balanced market. People just walked away and it was okay to do that. Waiving the home inspection, I will tell you right now, it's not a good idea. Just don't do that. If you want to limit your inspections, that's another thing. You can limit your inspections to just look at the structure, environmental, mechanical parts of the home. That I could get behind. Do the home inspections. All right. Don't be fearful about the home inspections, because that cost is going to add up and add up fast if you don't know what you're buying. Okay. Just trust me on that one. Let's talk about some tips. How do we avoid home buyer regret? Okay. How can we think like these 41,000 buyers that just walked away from their deals? Know your breaking point. Know exactly what you can afford, and do not look at homes that are over your budget thinking that you'll be able to negotiate that price down. No, because here's the thing. If you go for, like, say, a bigger home, if it's more than you can handle, that's going to get expensive to maintain. It really is. So I'm not just talking about your monthly mortgage payment. You want to look at what it's going to cost for utilities, right? How much you get to pay for your heat and air conditioning. How much is the water bill? How much is the landscaping, right? Sometimes people are just like, oh, I can let me go for the bigger home, I'll need the space. Don't do that. Don't do that, because a bigger home is going to be more expensive to maintain and to run it. And I would be sticking with what's in your budget, and do not go above that. Another thing you can do to avoid home buyer regret is don't give in to the fear. Okay. Do not give in to the FOMO that has been going on for the past 5 years. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. If the house isn't right, you can walk away. I say this to my buyers all the time. If you don't feel it, if you don't feel like I can see myself living here, the numbers work, I feel comfortable with this. If you're not checking those boxes, do not be afraid to walk away. And I'm saying, even if you get under contract, I always say, go with your gut. Go with your gut. If your gut's telling you something's off, walk away. Another tip is use the current market conditions to your advantage. Okay, so if you're in these markets, as I mentioned, that where these 41,000 buyers walked away, they're using those conditions to their advantage as leverage. They're using it as leverage to go back to the sellers and say, hey, yeah, this is great. I like your house, but the house down the street is $10,000 less. So you can negotiate the price that way. Use those conditions to your advantage to leverage with the seller. I'm going to be honest with you here. I'm still seeing it here in New Jersey in some cases. A lot of these home sellers are still overpricing their homes because they think it's still the market that it was 6 months or a year ago, and it's not. And a lot of real estate agents, unfortunately, I'm going to call you out, they will take a listing just to get a listing. Okay. And if they're not properly educating their seller on what's going on in the market, and they're just going to say, oh, you want to sell your house for $1 million? Meanwhile, the homes in the neighborhood are selling for $750,000. That agent could be like, yeah, let's try it. Let's put it on the market for $1 million. I mean, we're still seeing that. We are. And listen, if you're in one of these markets, use it to your advantage. You can go back and offer less, okay? And if the seller's not willing to negotiate, then my God, walk away. Don't even bother. Don't even bother with them until they come to reality of what the market is. And, that's just it. That's just how it's going to have to be. They have to accept the fact that the market has shifted and their house isn't worth what it was, say, 6 months ago. Use the current market conditions to your advantage. So bottom line, the biggest tip I can share with you is just walk away. Do not be afraid to walk away from the house. I don't care how much you love it. Again, if it doesn't feel right, you feel that it's going to become too costly. And if there's other houses that are popping up on the market, you know what? Walk away from it. These 41,000 buyers really dodged a major bullet. I feel we could be coming back to some normalcy to what we were prior to the pandemic. I just hope that this trend spreads across the country, especially here in the Northeast. Up here in Jersey, it's out of control. It's so out of control. But I really hope we start seeing more of this trend because it's got to get back to what it was. So home buyer regrets, it is a really big thing. And if you want to know all about it, did you know I have an entire playlist that talks about it? It's right here. I highly suggest you check it out. This way you learn how to avoid regrets yourself. Thank you so much for watching me today to get your dose of real estate reality. My name is Jackie Baker, and I will see you next time.